This is part 3 of Shamanism 111, when we're going to talk about power for shamans. So, shaman is defined as the one who sees, and the word shaman is often translated to mean the one who can see or the one who can see in the dark. Carlos Castaneda in The Art of Dreaming says seeing is not difficult. What is difficult is breaking the retaining wall in our minds that holds our perception in place. So developing harmony, balance, and rhythm means that we need to form a firm grip on reality and get a strong grasp of myth, metaphor, and the amazing worlds within, because this is really where our work is done, in our subconscious. And so steering clear of neurosis and depression, taking responsibility for the health and well-being, not just of ourselves, but of our tribe, is a true work of a shaman. And you probably know this already, but not all shamans are the same. Some shamans are mediocre and some are great. And the great ones understand the rules of power. Everything follows the path of power. The path of power is sourced in 4 things: inspiration, simplicity, exchange, and conception. Power is neutral. There is always a price to power. Power rests upon our intention and our attention in the present moment. Power can be stalked, hunted, and won. Power must be balanced, and power manifests through 4 aspects: breath, light, sound, and intention. The power path is the path with heart, and the smaller the degree of separation, the greater the power available. And I will go through all of these rules in a little bit more depth so that you can really understand it. So, more powerful objects make it possible for objects with less power to become more powerful. So relationships from more powerful to less powerful exist throughout the universe, from largest to smallest, higher frequencies to lower frequencies. So first, in order to become more powerful, look around and notice who has real power around you, who has and who doesn't. And I'm talking about real power, not just the appearance of power, not just that kind of external money-made power. And once you realize who really has power, then spend time with those people. They could be mentors, guides, teachers, etc. Spend time with them. Absorb some of their light, energy, and power. Number 2, nature is the truly greatest place of power, because nature can exist without you. You cannot exist without nature. And if you ignore this fact, then you are denying yourself a powerful source of energy. And this is why shamans spend a lot of time in nature. This is why shamans love to greet the morning sun, to absorb the noon sun, to witness the sunset, to bathe in moon and starlight, to climb trees and to sit on the branches of trees like birds, receiving the power of waterfalls, laying on hot rocks, etc. So understanding your relationship to nature and using nature to absorb more power. Third, to become more powerful, understand that the physical world depends on the spirit world, not the other way around. And that the spirit realms consist of many dimensions and frequencies. So people who refuse to, or who don't know how to look inside themselves, are the most inclined to rely on external power and to use external sources of power inappropriately, which eventually always will bring terrible consequences on themselves and others. So sit with yourself and get to know yourself on the inside. And it doesn't have to be like an official style of meditation. The most effective practices are the ones that bring you to inner stillness or silence. So this could be walking or dancing or singing, as well as sitting still. Power is waiting for you in that silence. So let's talk about these different types of shamans, because I think this is really important to understand that some shamans have more skills than others, and this has nothing to do with years of experience. So different skills can be like storytelling skills, or skills in the strong eye, second attention, having physical strength, having healing abilities, having skilled memories, having a sense of humor, which is really a skill as well. And experience is not everything, but experience does matter. It's important. We have experiences in different things, and experience is a foundation to our wisdom. Next is talents. And talent is really independent of skill and experience, and we have different talents that we come in with. The most important, really, for shamans is our values. What is meaningful and what's important, what we're willing and not willing to do with our skills, our power, and our knowledge. Our values are what motivates us to behave in certain ways. How we use our skills depends on our trust, our ability to be of service, our sorcery, our healing, our influence, for example, all has to do with our values. And our values really are created by the times that we're in. So we shouldn't have it so easy that we become soft and weak. We need some adversity to get strong. Either we grow strong or we die and wither. And I don't mean to be so black and white, but in this case, I think it's appropriate. So let's talk about the 5 different levels of shamans. And I've used the pyramid here, even though I don't really like pyramids, but I think in this conversation it might be appropriate, because it could very well be that the majority of shamans right now, or the people who call themselves shaman at least, might be the ones who are kind of on the survival spectrum. So these shamans are superstitious. They are deeply afraid. They're willing to do anything to survive, like throwing curses and black magic. They're ruthless. They don't understand service, love, or selflessness. And they're really dangerous, and you should avoid them at all costs. They have power, but they're not truly powerful. These people are sort of, the psychopaths, the con artists. They engage with harmful substances. They bribe, they bait, and they do switches on us. They play dirty tricks. They will create conflict and discord, and inevitably they will lose their power. The second level of shamans are rigid. And so these are the ones who are more orthodox, inflexible. They follow established rituals. They're not psychologically sophisticated or insightful, and they will blame external forces for their issues. And they will use their blame to justify harming others, and they perceive others as their enemies. These shamans engage in warfare, and their goal is to maintain status for themselves. They don't handle change well, and inevitably these people will also lose their power. The third level of shaman is the one who wants to be famous, the one who focuses on their own reputation. They want to be meaningful, and it's important for them that they're known, that they look successful. It doesn't matter the cost. They want to win at any price, and they will gladly sacrifice others on the altar of their own achievements. Appearance is everything to this shaman. They have what we have talked about, this kind of visible power, and they can be really good at manipulating physical forces to get what they want. The fourth level of shaman is a shaman in service, and they're really motivated by relationships. They want to help, and they want to help others heal. They're willing to forego fees, to donate their time, to go out of their way to help those who are less fortunate. What they lose from giving away for free, they always end up making up from those who have the means to support them. Because these shamans are motivated by their values, this means that they have a massive increase in power. Any differences and separations fall away. They have solid relationships with other shamans. They don't strictly adhere to traditions, but they are going with their own inner authority. Sometimes these shamans can forego their own well-being and burn out, but these shamans are in a constant state of increasing their own power. The fifth level of shaman, the peak of the shaman, the master shamans, are the great leaders. They stand out. They have an abundance of personal power. They don't need to expend on self-defense, protection, or self-promotion. They don't need your approval. They discover answers by looking within, not by asking somebody outside. They're powerfully intuitive. They're direct and ruthlessly honest. They're also deeply compassionate and loving. They're not attached to protocol, rituals, or set in their ways. They're spontaneous, flexible, and surprising, unpredictable, and detached from appearances. They are dedicated to truth. They have freed themselves from the mass hypnosis that most people are still in. And these master shamans are impeccable in thought, word, and action. They're responsible for what they say and how they say it. They don't blame others. They're not attached to outcome. They're powerful because they're not attached to their own power. They're willing to give up their own power if they feel it's the right thing to do in the moment. They have a raucous sense of humor. They're irreverent. They don't care what you think. They're disciplined and relaxed. They're dominant and submissive at the same time. They're strong and humble. And they're serious with a twinkle in the eye. These wise elders have true power, and they are the best role models for us to emulate. So shamans can then come in different expressions or different faces of shamans. And even though we have more or less talent in these different areas, we have to develop all aspects if we want to be at the master level. So artist is really the embodiment of the visionary, and we have these all over the world. We can see them because they have created these beautiful art pieces that have sustained and lasted throughout the generations. Artists work in the flow of creativity. They are using intense personal expression and applied imagination. To an artist, life is art in motion. They understand the world as a canvas for their work. Artists learn through discipline to focus their creativity with powerful intent, which helps form events in the physical world. We can see this everywhere, these universal themes in dances and songs and art that shamans have created all over the world. And these themes are things like gratitude for the helping spirits, intention of prosperity in our endeavors, and a desire to heal. Another one are storytellers. Storytellers live in the world of myth and metaphor. And shamanic myths all over the world share some commonalities, common themes, like the great tree that roots in the earth and soars into the sky, that divide the universe into lower, middle, and upper worlds, divided into the 4 sections of the 4 directions. So myths like this are told over countless generations, held in shamanic consciousness. And the power and the skill of the storyteller that brings these stories to life so that the people can remember who and what they are and why they're here. The warrior shaman is reflective and contemplative. It's an action-oriented being. The warrior is armed with weapons like concentration, discipline, intent, impeccability, and trustworthiness. A warrior has inner strength, and we need this inner strength for our wishing questing, fasting, and the ceremonies that warriors need to be able to have the power to do, like battling diseases, loss of spirit, going against negative spirits, malevolent demon, and even human opponents. Leader shamans. Because the more powerful we become as a shaman, the more natural our authority is in our community. So the leader shamans is often the most abundant member of their tribe and caretake their tribe in a way that benefits the tribe. They use their power to give. They're always good listeners. And imagine if this was the way of the world now, that these leader shamans were the ones who became our emperors, our kings, and our politicians, and our greatest role models. The shaman, well, these are the spiritualists, like the ministers, the priests, the wise women, the witches. We are the intermediaries between the spirit world and the ordinary reality. We can enter non-ordinary reality at will, transport and expand our consciousness. We are highly respected as counselors, and people come to us when they need help, when they need inspiration, when they need a better vision and an understanding or a ceremony to heal themselves. Healer shaman, I call us medicine women, witches. Shamanism is a tradition of healing and curing, and we work with all kinds of conditions. So the healer has knowledge. We are the original psychotherapists. We are the original counselors. We have a deep understanding of character and personality. We mediate conflict, both on the inside and out. We nurture, we heal wounds, and we raise spirits. And the teacher shaman, the seeker of knowledge, the pursuer of truth, the eager student who's willing to learn and apply our learning into actions. Shamans don't confuse information with knowledge. We understand that information on its own is useless, whereas knowing how to use that information is valuable and wise. So let's talk about balancing our inner selves. So it's important when we talk about power to understand these different sides, right? So if we have too much masculine energy, we are unable to listen. We become heavy-handed with our power. We become arrogant. We have a dominating intellect. We're not so much in the body. We become controlling, stubborn, impulsive, and greedy. If we have too much or dominating feminine energy, feminine power, we can go the other way. So we have an inability to speak up. We become overly passive, hypercritical, over-emotional. We're out of control. We're passive-aggressive. We don't take action, and we are overly focused on pleasing others. So we need to talk about insight as well, and what happens when we look within, or what happens when we look beyond. So we have this ordinary consensual reality, which is so consensual that a lot of people can't imagine any other way of being or any other way of perceiving. These people will often deny our second attention. They call it superstition, illusion, or imagination. And so to them, we can ask the question, what is not in your imagination? And in fact, this ordinary reality, this consensual reality that people think is so real, doesn't actually exist, as our physicists have discovered with quantum physics. So a second sight, on the other hand, is gained through our willingness to let go. We have to surrender our first attention. This can be frightening. And this can also happen spontaneously. It's what kind of called a spiritual awakening, right? Or a spiritual crisis, when people fall into second sight, where they're seeing other realities without the proper training for it. This can happen under extreme conditions, like if we have a fever, we're in some kind of accident or something else. And if we want to access real power, we have to do it from our second sight. And also, just a side note, letting go completely of the ordinary consensual reality is really not recommended. It will be really hard for you to do that. So, again, this sort of ordinary, mundane, regular consciousness, what we call first attention, doesn't really exist. It's a consensual creation. It's a co-creation between all of us, that this is reality. Whereas second sight is non-ordinary or extraordinary. It's available at any time. Master shamans can induce it at will, or we can engage into it through movement, like running, dancing, repetitive motions, hypnosis, music, or going into nature. Second sight uses our intellect but not our rationality, and this is where we go to find answers, relief, joy, insight, forgiveness, understanding. But this is where we go to receive communication from the other side. When you first go into it, or maybe always when you go into it, you might feel spinning and whirling. You might be able to see many dimensions at once. When you go into second sight, time changes, space changes. Your sense of separation or boundaries will change. You might experience deja vu. There might be a lot of emotions coming up, and you'll most likely feel strong presence with you. If you want to access real power, you have to be able to access the non-ordinary. Again, just as a reminder, you cannot completely let go of the ordinary. This will lead to psychosis or serious disorder. You have to become a world bridger, a walker between worlds, a master of all and a slave of none. This is the only way for shamans. So let's talk about these kind of visible and invisible powers then. So because some people accumulate great invisible powers and they're obscure and unknown, whereas people who really go for the visible power tend to be very visible. So visible power is only truly powerful when it rests on invisible power. You don't have to manifest invisible power externally. You can be a very powerful person without taking up a lot of space in the ordinary reality. You can work primarily through other realms and keep your personality here on Earth in the consensual realm more hidden. This is entirely optional how much space you want to take up. But some more ideas around visible and invisible power. So visible power grabs attention, has this dominating energy. It's quite judgmental, will exclude people who don't belong to them. It will also use external objects, paraphernalia, to kind of show off its power, like credentials, titles, ornaments, trophies, awards, testimonials. And visible power is short-lived. It's culturally determined and what uses signs and symbols. Invisible power is aligned with power in the moment. It is a subtle, radiating power. It's vital, intentional, and inspiring. People with invisible power don't take things personally. They're easygoing and they're able to laugh more. They're unpretentious. They have presence. They're simple, compassionate, and honest. They don't need props. They have no protocol. And people with invisible power are truly free. You can't fake invisible power. You can fake visible power. So power comes from 4 primary sources: inspiration, simplicity, exchange, and conception. No matter where you are or how you feel, you have access to infinite resources and power. The ability to tap into a particular source of power requires changing your thinking and limited perceptions so that you can recognize it and be willing to do what it takes to access it, including changing the channel. So knowing what you will use your power for is also important. The universe is one vast field of power, an ocean of light, the primary source of all energy. The light creates structures in specific fields. Some are visible and others are invisible to our human eyes. When we start to recognize the limitlessness of knowledge in the universe, which our modern science has only decoded a tiny fraction of, shamans understand that rather than one fixed reality, many dimensions actually overlap and coexist in the same space. That frequencies of light create dimensions that we are able to tune into, a bit like TV channels. Most of humanity is tuned into only one frequency or channel, which limits their experience of life. When we're able to find solutions, have experiences, and access power in other frequencies, our power becomes unlimited. Shamans are the ones who free themselves from this collective one-dimension channel so that we're able to access more frequencies and gain powers that don't exist in this realm. Other realities can offer answers to our questions and give us resources that are not available in the mundane. So let's talk about inspiration, because shamans use inspiration to rise up, to lift ourselves up out of the confusion, chaos, dysfunction, and powerlessness so that we can discover insights, knowledge, and power. We lift ourselves up so that we can help others raise themselves up and gain access to higher power. If we don't have inspiration, we will fall into depression, lethargy, lack of motivation, lack of vision, and powerlessness. And inspiration can be found in things like beauty, truth, courage, humor, potential, completion, and change. The next source of power is simplicity, because when things become too complicated, the result is always a loss of power, not a gain. So I've put the word here, elegance, because elegance to me is this: the thing expressed in its most simple form possible without loss of integrity. Jesus said, to enter the kingdom of heaven, you must again become like little children. And to be simple, to be elegant, to be free of complexity and to cut to the core is more and more challenging in our complex modern world. This is where practicing death, ego death, can be really useful, so we that have no attachments and we take nothing with us. So simplicity can be found in silence, in focus, in clarity, in innocence, presence, and decisions, and allowing ourselves to die a little bit every day. Power also comes from exchange. And exchange is action-oriented. It has to do with contact and relationships. And relationships can be partnerships, teacher-student relationships, supportive friendships, but it can also be from our enemies. We can find this exchange energy in service, right working, in power groups, in relationships in the sense of our attention, our acknowledgement, generosity, trust, vulnerability, love, and expression. And if we don't exchange, we will end up in a dark, lonely, powerless place full of despair, inertia, and withdrawal. The last source of primary power is conception, because when we're conceived, a blinding big flash, like a big bang of light, becomes our foundation, our bank of power that we have to work with as we develop into fully grown humans. Some of us start with more, some of us start with less, depending on the circumstance of our conception. But the truth here, and what's really important to know, is that you always have plenty. Even the least powerful conception creates more energy than can ever be used. How you use your power is what matters. Some people will waste their power through addictions, resentment, victimization, arrogance, impatience, and greed. Some try to hold on to it without investing it. Others will put it right to work in creating foundations of power that operate throughout their lives. So sources of conceptual power is birth, origin, imagination, and ideas. Power is neutral. It is how you manage your power that determines the consequences. Your perceptions determine your experience. If you enjoy it or hate it, you feel in charge of it and its effects and how you use it. All those things matter. If you desperately want power, you're resisting power, because when you want something, you're really fearing that you don't have it or that you won't have it, meaning that you are in resistance. You're not neutral. The more you resist your own power, the greater the changes you will perceive in the negative expressions of it. For example, people who are afraid of their own power will have their power show up in nightmares or as threats. Perceiving power negatively will also happen when you resist power in others or in natural phenomena like the power of the rain or the wind or the heat of the sun. The more you resist the power of nature, the more likely you are to experience its power negatively. For example, let's think about Wim Hof and the sort of teaching around cold, right? That if you can relax into the cold, your body will not freeze. What you resist, you give power to. When you resist something, you create the illusion that you're powerless. When you can be with the current conditions, whatever they are, and just acknowledge them, you pave the way for changing those conditions and the arrival of new levels of power. And the path of power is expensive. There's always a price to pay for real power. So how do you bid for more power? Well, first of all, you have to be completely ready. And you have to be able to identify when you're really, really ready. You must be able to adapt and learn the new rules of the next level of the game. You have to be prepared psychologically, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. You have to have knowledge, experience, and perseverance. You have to understand the nature of the risks involved. When you bid for power, you must be detached from the outcome. You must commit completely and act without hesitation. You can bid for power as many times as you wish, and you will always be tested to see if you really are ready and deserving. A bid for power is a personal decision to gain more power by taking on a challenge. It's a risk, it's a stretch, it's an exciting prospect. The game of life has infinite opportunities to gain more power, and you'll have chances on a daily basis if you step up to it. What's most important to understand is that a bid for power has to come from yourself. If you're following someone else's agenda, being manipulated or coerced, you're not establishing a bid for power legitimately, and it will be ineffective, unhelpful, and possibly even harmful. So, while these questions might seem simple and the answer might seem obvious, the world is quite complex. And when we're out in the real world, we often lose our perspective and this clarity that we have when we're sitting in our room by ourselves. It's easy to be a fool and to create catastrophic results. If you're not ready, bidding for power will produce negative and humiliating consequences, and you're most likely to fall on your face. When you're really ready, it doesn't mean that you're perfect or free from fear. It means that you're ready to truly commit, like a tiger on the chase. That you will see it through, regardless of where it will take you. You have to be physically capable of undergoing the stress that comes with a bid for power. A sick tiger will not be a successful hunter. You have to be adaptable. You have to develop an awareness of yourself to the degree that you're spiritually prepared for the consequences of winning or losing. Once you commit, you have to stick with it as far as you can. Perseverance will lead to knowledge and experience. You must understand the risks, not just for yourself, but also for you. A tiger will always observe its prey and calculate the risk before going into attack. You can't bid for power from a place of ego. You have to be prepared to bid again and again and again until you succeed. If your ego is invested in demanding that you succeed now or else, you're asking for trouble. You can't bid as a test to see yourself as, if you see yourself as smart or attractive or intelligent or creative. The tiger isn't trying to prove anything when it hunts, and neither should you. When you know you're ready, act. Like the tiger leaping for the kill. Act with complete commitment. The path of power is expensive. There's always a price to pay for real power. So the first one here is about announcing our achievements too soon and bragging about power, because this can lead to negative consequences, and this has been the downfall for many power players. In the shamanic realms, consequences for failure can be extreme, and this is why it's so important that you're really ready. Another thing to note is that if you're trying to do or undo the work or a curse of another more powerful player, you can endanger not just your lives, but the lives of your families as well. Only humans think that they can get something for nothing. Like, for example, thinking about lotteries where people win millions of dollars and then they end up in millions of dollars in debt because they don't know how to handle money. Most people never look beyond their immediate goal, whether it's influence, money, fame, or success, and they think that their immediate goal will bring relief from their suffering and bring them lasting happiness. And they fail to notice the price tag for what they want. So thinking about, Adam and Eve and the apple and the price of receiving knowledge in exchange for the loss of innocence, for example. The game of power is absolutely ruthless. If you play with outer power without developing your inner power, you're creating a blueprint for disaster. So the cost of power, for example, the cost of becoming a tiger is the loss of being a cub. The cost of growing into a lotus flower is the loss of being a seed. The price is often hidden and mysterious. A little bit like, I don't know if you remember these fairy tales from when you were a kid about, the troll that says, okay, but give me your future child, and they haven't even gotten married yet, and they promise this, and then they try to avoid giving the child eventually, and the troll comes back and steals the child back, So being really aware that the price of power can be revealed over time, and it's never what you think it's going to be, or often not. And becoming truly powerful is not going to be a comfortable process, because you have to leave your comfort zone in order to move to the next level. Successful bids for power are always acknowledged by an initiation of some form. Inner initiations bring us to face with our deepest fears. Outer initiations like societal rights, graduations, licenses, promotions, awards, and privileges give legitimacy to an increased rank. But really, these sort of tests and initiations can lead into deep personal recognitions. There's often no visible indication that the test has been passed and the initiation happened, but And me, for example, some of you know that I spent a year really in kind of hibernation mode or reconnection mode, and this was really an initiation for me to go deeper into myself and deeper into my own authority. You know that you're on a test of your power when obstacles start to appear. During a test, you may feel out of control and you might feel frustrated because you're not able to change the events that are happening. During the tests and initiations, you will meet an antagonist, and this is somebody who's going to really make your life more difficult. When you're having a true test of your power, it will also come with a secret helper or an ally. And it's really important that you don't refuse their help, because they're there for a reason. A real test, a real initiation will test you to your absolute limit. It will bring your ego to its knees to find out what you're really made of. You will have the opportunity to bring up every skill and resource to get to the next level. Part of the test is that you will doubt the effectiveness of what you know how to do. When you've passed the test and you receive the initiation, you'll find the proof in your ability to take on new responsibilities and handle more power more effectively. So what do you need to succeed? Commitment, quality of sacrifice, perseverance, and faith. And sacrifice can be hard for people who are addicted to comfort and instant gratification to understand. Your sacrifice is what you have to give up. Your current level of comfort, your preconceived ideas, and your limiting attitudes. Your sacrifice can also include renouncing for a time the ability to see yourself as competent, knowledgeable, productive, and successful. So again, going back to my most recent test and initiation where I really felt, I have absolutely no right to pretend to know anything. I can't guide anybody on their path because I'm not able to guide myself at the moment. And that was a really, really, really hard thing for me to go through. And this is where faith comes in, you cannot go through anything kind of tests or initiations without faith. Faith is what's going to fuel your perseverance in the moments when it's really, really, really hard. I have 2 quotes to end with. The first is from Lao Tzu, talking about true leaders. True leaders inspire people to do great things, and when the work is done, their people say, "We did this ourselves." And here's a quote from me, which is a leader aims to be perfect, and an elder accepts the process. So we're going to move into more depth into how to acquire power in the next presentation. There are a few exercises for you to do before you move into that, so I hope that you will take the time to do those first, and I'll see you in the next chapter.